So, Antarctica, the ice continent. I think many of you know that ice and snow cover 98% of this beautiful continent. It's the coldest, the windiest, and surprisingly, the driest continent. It's the fifth largest continent. It's about double the size of Australia. And it literally is like a giant living laboratory. And it's really a very good predictor as well as indicator of how climate is changing worldwide. So it's really important for us to really watch what's going on in Antarctica so that we can react and try and get ahead of environmental disasters. So yes, Antarctica for me was more of a dream than a bucket list. And when I arrived, and I'm actually really nervous of the cold, I get cold quickly. I love the sun. I love being outside. I actually work on solar panels, I think, it's built in somewhere. But when we arrived and I got onto the ice, I immediately fell in love with ice. So this picture was actually a screenshot of drone footage. So it's like a little bit fuzzy. But just to give you an idea, we were against the ice wall. So those little ants are actually us humans. And no, somebody didn't fall off. We were actually climbing up. So it was all very safe. But the ice and it's significant. Antarctica is significant. And in this picture, if I look at it, I think, we're so insignificant. We are so tiny. And you experience that there more so than anywhere else because there's nobody else there really. But I realized there more than anywhere else that I've ever been to is what a significant impact we have on our planet. And that's really an important thing to know. So tonight, I actually just want to share this amazing journey with you. And it really is a story about humans and people. I really love working with people and sharing stories with people. And Antarctica has got four main research themes. So everything we did, we tried to really fit in with it. So human enterprise is quite a big theme, a research theme, and the South African researchers also fit into that. So yes, I'm going to tell you more about people. I'm going to tell you more about impacts. So mostly human impacts, but this also fits into the research themes of the living earth, of living science, as well as innovation, because life in Antarctica is really tough. And if you're not innovative, you're not going to survive there. And that was something I learned there as well. And it's going to be an evening of sharing stories about adventure because, of course, we had Rian, the adventure guru, with us, who really envisioned this educational adventure. And Rian is also one of my brothers. Yes, he's also been adopted. And then, of course, there's the science, which is a very important aspect of Antarctica. There 40 research bases, more or less, about 160 research stations. And we did take some science with us with the support of a lot of people. And yeah, it was really good to see. We've got people who helped us with a lot of this. Eric is in the audience and Ruben. Oh, the turtle is with me because Antarctica, of course, is the only place in the world where you don't find sea turtles. And I've been doing a lot of work with sea turtles. So Rihanna and I had a bit of a laugh saying, like, I don't know why it took me with because I'm more of a turtle specialist. But yes, we decided to bring in a lot of science and education so that these amazing young adults that we took with could learn more about research methodology, how to analyze data, and how it impacts the planet. So a little bit quickly about me. So thanks to Ruan, of course, for that little introduction. But I call myself a fish nerd. I'm absolutely in love with the ocean, and I need to thank my parents for that. So they allowed me to go fishing when I was very little. I think I was about 5 years old there, and throughout my schooling, and then allowing me to go to university. In fact, my parents were cool enough to allow me to listen to whale and dolphin sounds throughout high school without trying to send me to a psychologist or anything. But so it started when I was little. It's ongoing. More than 40 years later, I'm still looking after fish, which is really special, and I really enjoy it. But so yes, okay, I'm work at the Two Oceans Aquarium at the Education Foundation side. So where we do all the amazing education, conservation, research, and awareness work. But I am a marine scientist, and I've been involved with fish forever. But my interest and just wonderment with Antarctica actually started with this picture. And I saw this picture when I probably was about 5 years old. And this is my uncle, Gustav Nell. And this was in their house because he was the team leader 50 years ago in 1971. And of course, as little children, every time we got to their house, we were blown away by the fact that his beard, his moustache, even if you look closely, his eyelashes, all frozen. And that really triggered that sort of real interest in what is this continent of ice. I've got an old book, in fact, it must be lying here somewhere, that was published in the 70s with Roy Siegfried, actually. And I knew his son, Duncan. And I've just always thought that this is the most incredible continent. But of course, me being a little bit scared of the cold and loving the sun, didn't think I'll actually get there. So what I love about Antarctica, of course, is the history and the South African history. And we were very fortunate to have met, or I've had Ria Olivier as one of our lecturers. I'm wearing my little Antarctic legacy badge with pride tonight. I feel we actually should spend the winter there to deserve it. But this was my uncle's team. I'm just going to use my arrow, actually, there he is. And then this was a very good family friend as well, back in 1971. The first overwinter expedition was actually at the turn of the century, like 1898, more or less. And the first South African team went in 1959, if I'm correct, which was also the year that 12 countries developed and signed the Antarctic Treaty, which is an incredible document. And I would like to encourage you all to download it and read it, because it was all about how to protect this continent in a peaceful manner. So not so much environmental, it was just, let's not have wars and fight over this ice continent, which was lovely. But then, of course, by 1982, the Convention on Conservation of the Antarctic Marine Living Sources Act was developed. And this was specifically to protect marine resources from overexploitation. So I would have liked it if it stated from exploitation, but overexploitation. The teams who work there are phenomenal. And like I mentioned, 40 research bases. So the program, Matrics in Antarctica, Rian has permanently got ants in his pants, so he cannot sit still. He was lucky enough to visit Antarctica with Fasti, his wife, loved it, and he decided he would like to share this with inspiring minds. And you don't get more inspiring minds than young adults. And 2020 was a crazy year for all of us, but most definitely also for matriculant. I have a matriculant, 2020 matriculant, my daughter Kai as well. And Rian decided, let's get some applications in and motivations from this group of young adults, and let's take them to Antarctica to learn more about climate change and our impact on the planet. So that it was actually run as a contest, and they had to write a short essay about what they can contribute to reducing the human impact on the environment, and basically have a lot more of a positive impact on the environment, especially how we're going to manage something like climate change, which is a really big word and people don't usually unpack it, but in our own community. So how can we bring back something to South Africa and Africa and utilize it here? So thousands of kids applied. I got a list of hundreds. It was sifted down to the top 100, and then I had to read through these 100 essays, and I didn't look at any names or schools or provinces or anything like that. However, I was looking for some of my favorites, like authentic, humble, amazing youngsters who were actually going to do something with this experience, and who believed in it, and who believed in themselves that they were going to make a difference. We were also really lucky that it was supported by University of Stellenbosch, the education department. So Prof. Jonathan Jansen is just wonderful, and he is patron, and Prof. Chris Reddy assisted, and they asked Padli Wahid to join, and Delisha is just the most amazing educator. So yes, we whittled it down, and we eventually got these 5 incredible youngsters who prepared themselves to go to this continent of ice. So I'm quickly going to introduce them. What is amazing though is what you see on your screen now represents South Africa, and I'm so proud of it. And we've got Kobus, who's from the Northern Cape. He's the only young lad who joined us, and he grew up on a farm, and he's going to study animal production. And oh, he's just absolutely lovely. And the only problem was he called me Tunny all the way through. Boy, Ketlo's just absolute sweetheart. She's from Heidelberg or Joburg. She plays the violin. She's doing missionary work in KwaZulu-Natal this year, and then planning on studying agriculture because she realizes how important food safety is in South Africa and Africa. Then Ayaka, she's a fierce climate justice activist. You know, she actually consults to our president on environmental matters. She's already got a platform of her own. She's chasing it hard. She's going to make an impact. She wants to be an environmental lawyer. Thea, that introduced herself earlier, is just an absolute darling, sweetheart. Love it to bits, but she can debate like I've never seen before. I would never want to go up against her in a debating contest. And yes, as she mentioned, she's going to study geospatial science. And then Kelby also introduced herself. Kelby's like this underground adventurer. She's like a mini Ria, and she was just keen to jump on anything and try everything. And it was so much fun. And she's also going to go into the science, into genetics. So yeah, what a fantastic group. We were just so fortunate, and everybody gelled, and yeah, it was just such a pleasure to have them. So of course, when you organize a trip like this, and it's COVID-19 and lockdown, it makes everything 100 times more difficult. So we actually consulted with Professor Bloomberg and Professor Wallace to try and establish a COVID protocol to be sure that the participants are as safe as possible and that we don't take anything across the Antarctica. And that, of course, entailed self-isolation at home. Well, COVID test, self-isolation, COVID test, quarantine, COVID test on the plane. But we were so lucky that the amazing Table Bay Hotel in the Vienna waterfront offered to host us. So we could not complain about our 7, eventually 9 days stuck in a room, because this was the view. And what was best about it is we started with our program during quarantine, and started capturing data, started looking at animal observations and monitoring. And we had so much activity in the harbor, like birds. I think I spotted at least 7, if not 8 species of bird out of my window. There were dolphins, sunfish. It was incredible. And we logged all of that. So we used iNatural for logging in Cape Town, as well, of course, as in Antarctica. So on arrival, they sealed us and sanitized us, and we were stuck in our rooms. We were not allowed out. We genuinely stayed in our rooms for 9 days solid. I shifted my furniture around a bit because I had to do normal work as well as lectures, and we had the most incredible lineup of inspiring lecturers. So professors, doctors, specialists in the field, from a lot of biological environmental work all the way through to really deep personal development, self-development. Delisha taught the kids how to, well, the young adults, how to present, public speaking. It was just the most phenomenal, very busy program. But again, I could not complain because I had this amazing view. Some of the presenters, I saw Ryan is in the house tonight as well. So Ryan is a crazy ice swimmer. He swam a mile in Antarctica, and that inspired us a lot, and it inspired Rian. And we had the Ryan Stramrod Challenge that we took with to Antarctica. So that's where our ice swimming actually started. And then, of course, we had to stay active. So Delisha did like Zumba and aerobics every morning. But towards the end of the week, I decided I'm going to try and run 5 kilometers in the room. So from from door to window is like 10 meters, and 5 kilometers went quite all right. The next I thought, let's do 10. And then that managed with that. And then I thought, well, why don't we do an ultra marathon in the Table Bay Hotel? It's never been done before. We, a team, is going to make a difference. So I actually did, I did 21 kilometers running up and down, and all the students and Delisha all did 5 kilometers. So we did 51 kilometers the day before we departed. And it was so much fun because we had a team of aquarium staff and colleagues dressed up as turtles to come and dance and cheer us on. It was amazing. But something like that taught us a lot again about ourselves. We had two of the participants who not runners, who didn't think they'll be able to run, and it was just amazing. But at long last, we could leave, head off to the ice. Cape Town is really the gateway to Antarctica. We've got this incredible company called the Antarctic Logistics Centre International, based in Cape Town, that flies from Cape Town International Airport directly to Antarctica. And they actually run all the logistics over there, and I'll get to that a bit later. But this is this beautiful Russian Illusion aircraft. I mean, it looks like a friendly airplane. It looks like it's got a smile. This is a cargo plane, so not a passenger flight, which made for very interesting time inside, because you sit on little jump seats on the side and with a little safety belt, and when it takes off, you like basically fall off and eventually settle down. The life raft is sort of in the middle of us all, so you see your life raft all the time and wonder, oh, hopefully nothing's going to happen while we fly over the ocean. And then I think the thing that I feared most was that the toilets were actually like portaloos, like that you find at sports events, just tied on properly. And I kept thinking, oh, I just hope those things don't fall over. But 6-hour flight into Antarctica. At Novo Airstrip, this airplane lands on this beautiful white ice. It looks like an ice rink that just never ever stops. It is just phenomenal. So ALCI actually runs the Novo Airstrip. There's a lot of activity, and what's amazing is you can see it's hard work and nothing is easy, because you've got to be so careful. No waste, water, there's no running water. You've got to like thaw out ice and get water. It's beautiful, it's clean, it's just absolutely mind-blowing. I was just blown away. But what we also realize is that this continent of ice, and you can see it when you're there, is definitely melting. So the amount of ice loss over the last decade is triple that to the decade before and the decade before, which is really, really scary. The average temperature increase over the last 50 years in Antarctica is 3 degrees Celsius, compared to like 0.9 degrees Celsius for the rest of the globe. Some of these, like blocks of ice that's breaking off the continental shelf, so big that maps have to be redrawn. Now, all of us have heard about, like we talk about climate change, well, most of us are actually conservationists, but we got to this incredible ice continent and we could see it, and that was scary. And one of the sort of fun facts that I keep throwing out there is if all the ice had to melt, sea level will rise by 60 meters, which is 12 stories. It sounds insane, but that is how much water is kept in there, and that's why it needs to stay frozen. And of course, this ice continent reflects solar radiation, and that manages climate globally. So, I just, like I said, I fell in love with this ice continent. We arrived, we went to the canteen, we were served lunch. The pilots are all Russian, they're amazingly skilled. Nothing is easy on the ice. These are ice Ubers, I call them. So you'll see that Toyota Hilux vehicles, they're called Nordic ice trucks. You can't see a road, because I also couldn't see roads. And these drivers are amazing. When we got in, actually, I said to Rian, I'm a little bit uncomfortable, because firstly, where's the road? And you can feel you like skidding a little bit. And he said to me, don't worry, the big tires are like armbands for like babies who swim. So if we had to fall into a crevasse or through the ice, we'll float. I was like, okay, right, I hope so. But they're amazing at driving. And one of the funniest but also quite a scary experience is we were filming actually, and Rian said to the drivers, and the one's Argentinian guy and the one's a Russian guy, oh, two Russians actually, is we'll just come over the hill and follow each other like this. And then they thought we're sitting like keep drifting and sliding. So they all skidded all over the place with us in his vehicles, but they were phenomenal. So that's how you get around. Again, frightening to see. We were there for a couple of days, for a week, and we had to literally change route and road almost daily because of melting ice. Just to give you a quick idea of where we are, if we look at the small little map, there's Cape Town. We flew straight down here at Novolazarevskaya, our base, which is owned and run by ALCI, the logistics company, is right next to the Russian research base, which is very close to Matrics, which is the Indian research base. There is a South African base. This is about 40 kilometers from the shoreline, from the continental shelf. And this entire area is called Queen Maudlands. It's like a big province in Antarctica. And the LCI actually services logistically all these areas, which means they take supplies, they collect supplies. Everything that goes there must come back again. And they do all this work in an incredibly sustainable and environmentally friendly manner. While I was there, of course, my daughters didn't join. They were here. And Kai one night used that Find My iPhone or Find My Family app. And she was at home in South Africa and Cape Town and picked up my phone on the Wi-Fi there in Antarctica. And I just love that picture. So we actually decided we were going to take a penguin mascot with, because we knew it's very unlikely that we were going to see penguins over there, because we were quite a long way off from the continental shelf. And yeah, so in Antarctica, there are actually 7 different species of penguins. Some are actually thriving and some are not doing that well. And we'll chat about that a little bit later. There are 40 different species of birds. And then, of course, there are all the cool seals. I think about 6 or 7 species of seals. Sometimes we actually see them here in South Africa. We recently saw crab eaters. We've seen elephant seals. We've seen Antarctic fur seals down here as well for a visit, and they pop back up, or down, actually, I should say. And then, of course, beautiful whales. And with the whale populations recovering, they're eating more krill, and krill's actually reduction, not just because of the whales, but a blue whale can eat about 4 tons of krill a day, which is quite amazing. This photo, this was probably about 10 or 11 o'clock at night. So of course we were there midsummer, so the sun never went down. We had 24-hour daylight, which was really great. We were all tired because you know, you go to bed very late because it never feels very late, but it was absolutely lovely. And this was also the evening when we went camping. So Rian was determined we had to experience what the early explorers experienced, which was great. So we were like Shackleton and Amundsen and Scott's, you know, the early 90s, a little more modern tent. And I can tell you that it was really cold, but it was really special. And while we're doing all of this, you know, we reminded all the time of no impact. You leave nothing behind. Be very careful. Everything we do, we hiked there, we camped, packed up everything, hiked back. It was a beautiful experience, but what made it very special was this. So Boy Ketler took her violin with, and we had probably close to midnight this amazing violin concerto in Antarctica on the ice, which I'm sure must be a world first. Her hands were freezing. She actually stopped halfway through and we quickly warmed them up, and she carried on. It was just beautiful. And of course she had to balance out the frozen fingers with some frozen feet. So these youngsters were keen for everything. It was just such a great and beautiful experience. The ice there is amazing. You know, we sort of, some of us have experienced snow here in South Africa. If we're lucky, if we go to Hogsback or Ceres in the snow, but ice is very different. So everybody said to me, go make snow angels when you arrive. So first thing I tried to do, of course, is that, but I almost got concussed because the ice is so hard. If you pull back on it, it's hard and you've got to like scratch and you still don't make anything. But we learned a lot because it's ice crystals. We actually called it like slush puppy, but it's like hard slush puppy. And you can see when it melts. Our drivers and guides also showed us where you get the powder snow that sort of fills the gaps which is quite scary. You don't want to drive over that. So we built this ice statue, and of course, Kobus is a rugby player, had to tackle it. So throughout this educational experience, we made sure that we also had lots of fun, which is really important in a learning environment. So it was just fantastic. Then we were very fortunate to have gone on this beautiful internal flight, because we really wanted to see the continental ice shelf and the mountain peaks. So we jumped on a DC-3, which again is an incredible aeroplane. This is also part of the LCI fleet. And these airplanes actually come down from Canada. You'll see the little Canadian flag up there with Canadian pilots. And the airplanes actually have got skis on as well. The Aleutian flight, flying in and out, is like really smooth. I was quite surprised. This one was very bumpy, but it all depends on the weather conditions, whether you can go out or not. So what was great about this one is we could go into the cockpit. And here you can see the mountain peaks. I kept thinking we're flying very low, straight at these mountain peaks. But what was quite frightening is that we could see so much mountain and far less ice. And again, a very visual reminder of climate change and global warming. So just to show you where our little house was, so ALCI runs this camp, which is right next to the Russian base. And it's these 3 beautiful cabins that's cladded in wood right next to a lake. Everything there is difficult. You can't just open a tap. There's no running water. It has to be made, like I mentioned before. That's sort of the main little house with a kitchen and a dining area, and all the pilots stay there. So the Russian pilots who do all the airdrops of supplies, and it's like in the movies, it's on pallets and they push it out with parachutes. So they stay here. These 2 cabins are for when researchers stay over, because ALCI would logistically fly in some researchers. If the weather's too bad, they'll have to stay here until they can fly or move across to their bases. And then we stayed in this middle hut, 10 of us. It was a tight squeeze. 1 bathroom. We called it a bathroom, but of course, when we walked in, there was a tiny little hand basin with a tank above it, and you've got to fill it with a 25-liter drum of ice that's been thawed out to turn into water for hand washing. So when you have to go through the process where you see somebody having to carry the water to fill that, you're way more careful with water than under normal circumstances. And of course, it had a very interesting toilet because there's no water for flushing. And again, it's a weird contraption where you push this pedal and it sort of eats everything and it disappears. But it doesn't quite disappear. It stays below the cabin and it freezes, and everything needs to come back again to South Africa for treatment, and nothing stays behind. So if on the flight back, if you ask the Russian crew, like, what's in there, they will say to you, oh, poor, it's coming back. And we had the most southern sauna that we could actually enjoy, and more about that a bit later. But this was one of my favorite people there. Piotr from Russia. It's his 11th season. He works for LCI. Rian said to me before, remember now, the Russians are really nice, but they don't come across very friendly, so they don't smile, and they're not super interactive. So it was like challenges. Oh, and I'm going to love the Russians. And Piotr is like the best ice driver, but he also runs the kitchen, so he made us food and meals. And what was amazing is if you have fish for lunch, then it will be a lot. And if you don't eat everything, then you're going to have a different sort of variation on that dish for dinner time. And if you don't eat all of that, that's going to be your breakfast, because there's no waste. And that is just how you live in Antarctica. And a very important lesson that we could bring back here. So, yeah, I was determined to actually get to know Piotr because he reminded me so much of my late cousin, Pete Himan. He looks a lot like all the Himans, as well as Jeff Spivey, a good friend. All wrapped in one. And by day 2, I offered to do the dishes, and they're like, no, because we don't understand how little water we must use. So I decided I'm going to prove that to him. So I was promoted to dishwasher proudly, and I could wear his apron, and it was just great fun. They were so lovely. But again, I mean, we went through day 0 here in Cape Town. We saved water. And if I think back, it was really nothing like you do there and there it's normal. There's no other way you do it. A very important lesson for me and the students coming back here again. So yes, as I mentioned, I spoke about the little basin and the little toilet, and I probably didn't mention there was nothing else. So no shower. Before we went, I was chatting to Erik Kirsten, who's a innovator based in Denmark. And he said, and we were chatting about sustainability, and he really believes in irritation leads to innovations. He's developed amazing products. So he said to me, he's going to send me something to take with. And I don't know what it was. So this box arrived with these things in that I thought this is very strange and novel. I had to figure out what it was. But it's for hospitals. So they developed waterless cleaning, I call it cleaning gloves, and those little, it looks like a shower cap, but for bedridden patients so that they don't have to have a normal bed wash, which takes a lot of water. You know, there's, I mean, a social impact of just dignity is involved there, and all the towels used, and towels must be washed. So the life cycle assessment on using these swash, it's called swash products, shows that it's 74% more environmental friendly, like a normal shower or bed bath. So for us, it was like a novelty. We were like looking forward to having all sorts of funny photo shoots with our funny shower caps. And then when we got there and we realized there's no shower because there's no running water, this novelty became a necessity. And a big thanks to Erik, because his products kept us fresh for our week over there. But again, a reminder of the sort of the uncompromising sustainability that's normal in Antarctica that we should really be practicing, you know, here in South Africa and Africa. It was so exciting to be able to do something positive there that made an impact straight away. So we do lots of beach cleanups and cleanups here in Cape Town and in South Africa, obviously around the world. And we were hoping we'll be able to do a cleanup there, but we were also hoping that we were not going to find any waste there. But when we were there midsummer, a lot of the ice melted around the camp. We went on a walk, probably on day one actually, and saw a lot of what looked like builders' waste. So here, right in the background, is that Russian base, that Novolazaryevskaya, and they're forever building and maintaining. It's really windy. It's the windiest continent. So I almost blew away. And I realized with that wind, a lot of this material was that stuff that blew away, iced over under the ice for a year or two or even longer. With the ice melting, we actually could go and collect. And we had Ayaka, who was our bag lady. We took our Sealand bag with because they helped us with nice bags as well. And we collected all of this. You can see there are a lot of rusty nails, so all building materials, and sorted it, which was again a great learning experience for the students, for all of us, is how are we going to sort it, how are we going to log it, how are we going to quantify it, and then we log it into the Beach Club application. And again, that was for, I reckon, a world first of seeing that 909 items logged in Antarctica during our cleanup. The nice thing actually about the guest house or our base is that they have bins outside for metal, for glass, so we could sort it all. And the Russians really don't say much, but the pilots came outside and they looked at us and they went like, oh, ecological. Good. So it was really nice to be able to contribute in that way while learning how to again analyze what we were doing. We did a lot of hiking. It's beautiful. Hiking was tough. You know, it's like either very loose rock like you can see around here, and we went down there and everywhere, or ice, which is quite slippery. But it offers some form of biodiversity. So I mentioned there are 40 species of birds. We got to see these South Pole skuas. They're actually the most southern birds you find in the world. There were two quite tame ones near the base who followed us around. It was lovely to see them. We also got to see Wilson's petrels, which they're often called Jesus birds because they run on water. And then we found this. And this is a little frozen dead Adelie penguin, and which is very out of place because we're about 40 kilometers from the continental shelf. So The team at the camp said they have seen a few penguins waddle past, and I can just imagine a 40-kilometer waddle. And shame, so this little thing, we had a good look at it. It didn't look too thin. It was been dead for a while, but of course, it's well preserved because it's frozen. But these little Adelie penguins are really suffering in Antarctica because of the loss of krill, and loss of krill because of overharvesting, and the Southern Ocean's actually heating up, so they're not getting enough food. But some species of penguins, of course, have adapted, and the Gem2 penguins have increased in population numbers substantially because they've converted to eat a lot more fish and squid. But yeah, these Adelie penguins are not doing well at all. And I felt quite fortunate that we managed to see Shame, a little penguin, even though it was dead. And then, yes, as we mentioned, Ryan Stramroot inspired swimming. I'm sure you can see on screen, Rian and I actually really had fun. We enjoyed it. It was freezing cold, so the water was about 1 degree Celsius. The swimming actually started with our two cameramen, Willem and Kleinian, as well as Quibus. They started swimming, I think on day one even, because they were very nervous of the fact that there weren't showers. So they were certainly the cleanest. But they did this whole Wim Hof thing, and they did proper like meditation beforehand. We just ran in, swam across. Oscar, who's the mascot from the Table Bay Hotel, joined us. It was such fun with Oscar there, but it was also very stressful because I was so nervous that Oscar was going to blow away. So Oscar spent most of his time indoors just in case. But when you swim in 1 degree Celsius water, this is what it feels like. It's absolutely fun and exhilarating. This lake was beautiful. So here's a little cabin just below where we stayed. This is, of course, where the sauna is as well. This is not a warm bath. This is an ice bath. And the lake is, well, where you see the ice. And we actually used the water in the lake as well as in this ice bath for our water experiment. So like I mentioned, we brought science to the table as well. So a big thanks to Deep Blue Aqua. They lent me amazing water quality equipment so I could share it with the kids. We could teach them, again, methodology, research, how to obtain results. I mean, on the first day, we did a whole lot of tests and everybody did a different way because I said, well, just try it out. So the results were all skew and weird. And it was so much fun to learn through practice. Because for us, it was really important is we're going to learn through our heads, so we're going to use our brains. We had loads of lectures. It was intense. We're going to learn with our hearts because that's why we all went along in the first place. It's experiential, very hands-on. But of course, we used our feet as well because we did a lot of walking. We were very busy. And so we were actually working. There was a table right here on the side, and I looked at this bath. So it was probably 2 days before I was in this. And the water did not look clean to me. So I said, cool, we are going to learn how to do ammonia tests. We did lots of chemical tests, and one of them was an ammonia test. I showed them how to use a photometer and how to use blanks and the colors. And what we learned through doing this ammonia test with a bathtub is that somebody definitely weed in the bath. So, of course, Rian was like, oh, no, that's disgusting. Pull the plug out. And we all like, no, put the plug back because we can't waste water. Somehow Peter managed to redo something with the water, filled it up. This was beautiful and clean, and it was incredible. So 2 degrees water. So Rian said to me, our target is to stay in the bath for 1 minute, and he did it. And we're like, yes. So I got in and I said, like, no, man, we can stay in for 2 minutes, no props. Did 2 minutes. And then I actually went for another swim in the lake, and Rian jumped back in, and I got back and he said he stayed in for 2 minutes, 35 seconds to be exact. And I was like, oh, Rian, now I've got to stay in longer. So we were chatting away, and I eventually stayed in for 5 minutes. And then we decided, no, now we're just getting silly. We'll leave it at 5 minutes. And it was cold, and I was cold for like a good 2 hours after, like shivering and realizing there is actually a big impact on our bodies staying in icy cold water for that long. So yeah, Ryan, hats off to you for your 32 minutes in -1 degree water swimming. But what an experience. I think the list of people who can say they swam in Antarctica is not very long. And while doing so, learning a lot about the environment. We did water testing, but we also did a lot of water tasting. And then I'm not really a sauna fan, but we decided we got to try this out because it's the most southern sauna in the world. And you wear these little funny, like a little gown. Well, it's a normal size gown for me. It was a very little gown for Rian, and it was really funny. And he was keen to, he's like, go all out. We do the hats, we do the whole thing. So you can have all of 3 seconds view of us in our funny outfits in the sauna in Antarctica, having an absolute blast and learning while we're there. So back to Novo, this beautiful ice strip. I mean, it was just spectacular. I literally fell in love with this view of just, I call it iceness, you know, and because the temperature is increasing, a lot of tourists actually go to sort of the peninsula side, and a survey was done on why are they going to Antarctica, and most people said it's because we want to see it before it disappears, which is really a scary thought, that is the belief that this amazing ice continent is going to melt. What can we do about it? And I mean, what I learned there is, like, we've got to tread gently on our Africa, on our continent, you know, never mind Antarctica, because the ice is melting and the temperature is increasing. I mean, last year they recorded the warmest temperature ever in Antarctica, and it was actually at the Argentinian base, which is near the peninsula, not that far from where we were, and it was 18.9 degrees Celsius. That's high. So suddenly plants, there are 2 species of plants, it's growing all over. So in some areas, it literally looks like a little patch of island, but instead of sheep, they're little penguins. And there's also algae growing in the ice. And this algae's got a red pigment in it that protects it from solar radiation. But because the ice is now this dark red color, it does not reflect solar radiation and therefore heats up. And Willem van den Heever, is the cameraman on our trip, he actually made a beautiful movie about Antarctica and environmental impacts. And he showed a clip of this. It's called Watermelon Ice. And I initially thought, well, at first it looks like blood and all these penguins are being slaughtered or something. And then I thought, oh, it must be krill. So the guano that's full of krill. And then he said, no, it's actually this algae that's really flourishing everywhere because of the warmer temperatures. So everything's impacting on everything. And this ice continent really regulates the climate of the rest of the planet. The Southern Ocean is warming up, which is because the ice is melting actually in the ice continent. And yeah, that is just the scary thought. And we saw it happening being there, but also we were with this incredible team who goes season after season, and through conversation, they tell us how it changes month to month, year to year. So this is back at our amazing ice wall. You can see here, poor Thea's looking down, going like, oh my goodness, the side is, I'm not going to slide down here because it looks like it's melting. We were all like, we're going to make a difference, we're amazing. And Rian, the adventurers, like keeping a good eye, like I'm not going to lose anybody off this wall. But it was all very safe. But the reason I'm showing this to you again is that's our little Anne's picture, is when we got back, there's a lot of interest, and we've been given a lot of airspace, such as tonight, to share our story. So this was actually screened on Expresso, and all the young students and Rian and myself have been able to really try and inspire people to think differently about how we live here in Africa. Because if we copy how we had to live in Antarctica, we are really going to have not just a neutral, but a positive impact on the environment. So we've been on quite a few TV shows. When Rian and I get on, it's always a big laugh and great stories and sharing, but it's a serious theme. And I remind people that what we learned was serious, what we saw was serious, what we experienced was serious, but it was a really fun experience. I mean, Ayaka is like a true little activist. We even got her to laugh here. All of the students, here we go, Thea included, has been on TV quite a few times sharing their experiences. This was, we call him our Brucian, our rugby player, even allowed a makeup artist to put some makeup on him for this. I had to do the same. I didn't recognize myself there, but it has allowed us all to have a platform to share. These youngsters are inspired. They're going to make a difference, and they're the alumni, which means they're going to be a next cohort of young students. These youngsters will always be involved, and that's how we're going to grow this amazing ICE experience and what we have all been able to experience and view. So just lastly, these were our two phenomenal support crew guides from Italy, from Gonzalez, from Argentina, Alberto. They taught us so much just through conversation. It was incredible. Of course, we had a lot of support. So I'm not going to go through everybody because that's going to add another 20 minutes on it. But a big thanks to everybody, obviously Rian, who put this all together. But it was just the most incredible education, inspiring expedition and adventure. And I really hope this program will continue, not just for 5 years, for many years. All I want to do is get a hold of that illusion, load it full of people, and gently go there and experience this beautiful ice, because it's changed me, and I'm a conservationist already. So yeah, incredible. So thank you so much to everybody here tonight as well. I am going to stop sharing. So if there's some questions, we can get to. But yeah, I absolutely fell in love with the ice. So thank you.
Marika, that was wonderful. And as always, your passion and enthusiasm is so infectious. I just wanted to know, you mentioned that you did lots of tests when you were there. Won't you just share with us what those tests involved? Thank you.
Of course. So Viv, we actually started doing some water quality tests before we left. So we tested basic water quality parameters of tap water, of drinking water, and then of course when we got to Antarctica, this lake water. And we just look at the chemical composition, some of the heavy metals. So we used those awesome deep blue aqua equipment. But what was really interesting is because it was midsummer, so it was supposed to be, it was actually quite warm, but when we were doing the test, the external temperature was actually 0 degrees Celsius, and the equipment is rated from 0 to, I think, 60 degrees. So it really struggled to read it, which was something in itself. So yes, we got some results on the water quality, and we can confirm that the water in the lake at Oasis is absolutely pure and beautiful, and it tastes so different. So that's why I also call it water tasting. But we also, there's Fasti and Samuel, we also did, we looked at medical physiology and the physiology, your body's response to certain things. So the students had to do heart rate checks before we did exercise, before we left. And then when we were there, I actually taught them how to do blood pressure readings the old way with a proper cuff. And it was just really enjoyable because all of that we tied back to research methodology and how you can use it. And then, as I mentioned, the cleanup and analyzing, sorting, capturing the data, and then of course how we disposed of it. So it wasn't research-based science because we had to use what we could take there, but we wanted to make an impact on the environment and learn more. So I really enjoyed it. Thanks, Viv.
Brilliant stuff, Marika. I'm reading here. Awesome, brilliant. Thank you. Super presentation. Maybe I can add, or not. It's not a question. It's just what you said. I made a few notes. Uncompromised sustainability. I think that's really important to keep in mind for the rest of the world. Like you said, not only our own continent that we call home, but the planet that all of us call home. It's uncompromised sustainability. And then conversation, the last few minutes that you mentioned, it's conversation. That's how we learn. That's how we do everything as human beings. We converse, we talk, we tell stories, and that's what you did so brilliantly today. And hopefully we can all take that to mind and back to our everyday lives and our families and the people we know and we love, to tell them about these incredible
experiences.
Well, thanks for that, because the conversations were really important. And Rian, I mean, you can jump on this conversation as well, because every day during mealtime we had conversations with the youngsters, and they also said they learned so much through sharing and hearing about, especially Rian's crazy adventures, but our lives and what we do and what I work with, and traveling around Africa with Rian and being stuck in the middle of the ocean, and we learned so much through having more casual conversations through hiking. I mean, we hiked kilometers every day, and that was amazing. I'm going to hand over to Rian now just to give a little bit of a feedback there, but I also just see here that Graham asked if they're commercial trips. There are actually a lot of commercial trips from, well, pre-COVID, of course. So more from the Chile side on the big cruises. I think if Ryan is still in the house, that's where he swam off a cruiser there. But where we were, I mean, there's an odd one. I think they said less than 1% is sort of a commercial trip. So everything is to service Antarctica and the research bases. So yeah, it was just, and it's very expensive. You know, it's insane, the cost of getting there. But it was, I can't explain it in any other way than saying I completely and utterly fell in love with the place. So Rian, I don't know if you want to add some more, because yes, it was your program, and I just feel so blessed that he took me with, even though I don't know anything about rocks and lots about the turtles that we didn't find.
No, you put me under pressure now. No, listen, this is not a time to, I'm not going to hijack your limelight now. You've done so well. I think we're all privileged to be able to see what, through your eyes, just what you learned. So absolutely amazing just to be able to understand. But I just love it that we've got like Thea and Calby just part of this now. You know, this is part of their growth as well. You know, when we were 18 years old, and we said, and it's particularly to people who understand my history and understand my life and have actually researched a little bit more about me to understand where I come from. You know, when I was 18 years old, I wish I could have clamored at opportunities like these guys have. And I'll tell you one thing that has absolutely blown me away is that Thea and Calby have jumped at opportunity. There's an entitlement syndrome that's sitting with many of the youth today. You know, there's a blame feeling that or idea that goes around that we can blame when things go wrong. So the best thing about Matrics in Antarctica, the inaugural year, the blood, sweat and tears, all were worth it to see what these guys are doing. I think next week, Calby, if I'm right, I'm with you in Eastern Cape, and then Thea with you in KZN. So looking forward, this was incredible with Quibus and with Ayaka to go back to their schools and to share this excitement, because I think one thing that Marika does touch on, and it's what's lacking in the education department, and I don't normally get the platform to be able to share my opinions on things like this, but the education, the curriculum doesn't infuse that desire for children or for students to want to learn. If we can just bring back that desire for them want to learn, not that they have to, we're going to see an environment that will benefit from tomorrow.
Brilliant stuff. Cool.
Thanks, Rian. I just quickly saw, sorry, Rian, one question there from Helen about the energy supply, and it's quite a relevant one because there are some newer research bases that get all the energy from wind or solar, but most of the bases are combined solar. Of course, no solar energy in winter because it's like dark all 24 hours a day, and then generators. So and that's why they've got to transport fuel there, and then any waste comes back in these fuel drums that the Russians call poo-poo drums.